Thanks, everybody. Among the great privileges that I have in my life is that I get to travel all over the world and talk to people from poor countries all over the world. Let's get this. Okay. Oh, sorry. Can we go back two, please? Okay. All over the world I go, and I see this scene repeated over and over again. You know, many people are saying that broadband access is going to reach every corner of the earth. Everywhere I go, I see children in sometimes situations of enormous poverty looking at smartphones. What we know now is that increasingly, everybody knows how everyone else lives. Now, I had the impression that aspirations all over the world were going up. And so I asked a group of economists inside the World Bank Group, can you do some research and tell me if this is really true? And here's what they found. It's very interesting. If you have access to the internet, your overall satisfaction, and this is based on Gallup type polls of satisfaction, your satisfaction with your own life goes up. But at the same time, you're more likely to want to migrate, to go to another country to live. The other thing that happens is your reference income, that income to which you compare your own, also goes up. So indeed, it seems like aspirations are rising, and so there is a convergence in the world. People around the world basically want the same things. And so I'm going to just talk for a minute about my own life, about the aspirations that brought me into this position, and how this compares with what we're facing in the world right now. So this is not my mother, but my mother actually had this very experience. She had to literally walk away from Seoul as North Korean soldiers were coming in, and she carried her own sister on her back. My father, at the age of 19, escaped from the northern half of Korea alone, without his family, and never saw any of his family members again. So I am the child of two refugees. Now, my parents, through lots of great luck and the kindness of strangers, both got scholarships to come to the United States when there were literally only a few hundred Korean students in the United States. They met, they married in New York City, my older brother was born, but then they went back to Korea, and my sister and I were born. And I remember life during that time as idyllic. I mean, we were relatively protected. My father was a dentist. My mother taught at the local university in philosophy and religious studies. And I remember it as a wonderful time when we were living in extended family, but also at the time, Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world. And there were demonstrations in the streets just about every day, actually just down the hill from where we lived. Korea in 1959 was thought by the World Bank, the organization I now lead, as being a basket case. Impossible. There's no way that Korea is going to grow. And the World Bank report actually said that Korea would find it difficult without foreign aid to provide its people with more than the bare necessities of life. Korea didn't get its first loan from the World Bank until 1963, because up until that point, it was felt that even the lowest interest rate loan, a 40-year loan at 0%, would be too much for the Koreans to be able to pay back. Now, at around this time, in 1964, my parents moved us back to the United States. And part of it was because they had seen what life was like in the United States. Their aspirations had been raised to a level that most Koreans just couldn't imagine. Now, the fact that my parents had such high aspirations is what brought us to the United States. But I just want to tell you that my parents' aspirations for us and our aspirations for ourselves weren't always the same. My mother was a philosopher, and she studied at Union Theological Seminary with great intellectuals at the time. My father was a dentist, a very practical man. So one day, I'll never forget, it was after my sophomore year in college. I was at Brown. I came home, and he asked me, "So Jim, what are you going to study? What do you want to be? What do you want to study?" And I said, "Dad, I've made up my mind. I'm going to study philosophy and political science, and I'm going to join a political movement." At that point, my father, the Korean dentist, pulled the car over to the side of the road very slowly. And he said, "Look, when you finish your medical residency, you can study anything you want." Now, I've told this story many times, and when I tell it to a mostly Asian audience, nobody laughs. Just shake their head. Of course, that's the right answer. Now, so I ended up hedging my bets. I did a degree in medicine and a degree in anthropology, so I did both. But I never lost the sense that I wanted to join a movement. So here is my very first trip to Haiti. I went to Haiti in 1988 with a couple of friends. We'd started an organization called Partners in Health. And we thought about what is the philosophical underpinning? What is the moral underpinning of the work that we're going to do? And we decided that it was going to be this notion of making a preferential option for the poor. Came from Catholic social teaching, but completely non-denominational and not religious. The idea was that we would always try to raise our aspirations to meet those of the poor. Here in Haiti, we thought, well, if you talk to the experts on Haiti, they'd say, well, only thing they can afford is vaccines and maybe some nutritional support. But what these villagers wanted was they wanted a hospital, they wanted schools, they wanted the same opportunities for themselves as, frankly, I had coming from Korea. I also really did a lot of my work in Peru, Lima, Peru. This is the squatter settlement in Lima, Peru, where I started my work. And what we did was, again, under the idea of a preferential option for the poor, we walked around and sat in people's homes and tried to figure out what their aspirations were. What we discovered there were patients that looked like this. This is Melquiades. There's recently been a film made about our work. It opened at the Sundance Film Festival, and Melquiades is a star. He had drug-resistant tuberculosis, thought to be untreatable in developing countries, but we began treating. And through very hard work by nurses, community health workers, we had extremely high cure rates. And I hadn't seen Melquiades for 10 years, and when we had our World Bank meetings in Lima, Peru, I saw him again. He'd become a confident young man, survived this disease. He survived this disease that the World Health Organization had declared a universal death sentence in any poor country. So we fought the World Health Organization, but more than any other group, we fought against the World Bank. Because the World Bank kept saying it's not cost effective to treat patients like this. It's too complicated, it's too expensive. We then met patients looking like this. This is Joseph June in Haiti. He has a very advanced HIV. And once again, we were told by the World Bank especially, but also WHO, that treating poor people for HIV was not cost effective. And we thought this was crazy because there's 25 million people living in developing countries with HIV. And we argued and argued and argued with the World Bank. I joined a movement called 50 Years is Enough, in which I was part of a group that tried to close the World Bank on its 50th anniversary in 1994. So we lost that argument, which was very good, I think. But we knew from our experience in Haiti that the medicines would work like this. And this is the outcome that we had in Haiti. This is Joseph June, just a few months later. We call it the Lazarus effect of HIV treatment. Now, I just want to pay tribute right here to George W. Bush, because George W. Bush is the person who transformed prospects for African people. And you know, everywhere I go in Africa, people remember President Bush. We actually took these photos, my colleague Paul Farmer took these photos to the White House, showed it to the White House staff, and when they started believing that this could be done in Africa, President Bush made the commitment. Now, all this time, I was really arguing with the World Bank, and I wrote a book, Dying for Growth, and the argument was the World Bank is focusing too much strictly on GDP growth and not enough on investing in people. And I had kept up this critique, but over the years, since 1994, when on its 50th anniversary, the World Bank had been changing, and they'd been changing a lot based on evidence. And so this crazy thing happened. Here I was, part of the movement to close the World Bank, and out of the blue, I was nominated to become president of the World Bank. Now, the vetting staff of President Obama read every page of Dying for Growth, and I thought I'd be disqualified, but I was not. And I walked into the building and saw this on my first day. Our dream is a world free of poverty. And so I said, okay, let's not dream anymore. Let's turn it into a target. So we have two targets: end extreme poverty by 2030 and boost shared prosperity. Make sure that the bottom 40%'s income is growing like everyone else's. Now, here are the things that keep me up at night that I'm most worried about. And here are the things that I'm here to ask for your help on. For the people sitting in this room, you may not know it, but you have a huge role to play in tackling these problems. Fourth Industrial Revolution, technology. We talk about it a lot at this meeting. Here's what worries me most about it. Our own estimates are that two-thirds of all jobs in developing countries will be eliminated because of automation. Two-thirds of all jobs. And you can see some of the numbers of individual countries. So low-skilled jobs, agricultural jobs, light manufacturing, will either be lost or will never come to poor countries. Here's the other thing I worry about: childhood stunting. Childhood stunting is very straightforward. It's 2 standard deviations below height for age. And we've done studies, and we now know that every child in the world, no matter where they were born, can grow 25 centimeters in the first year and 12 in the second. Stunting rates are astronomical. 38% of children in India are stunted. 50% of children in Ethiopia. About 40% across Africa. What we know, the brains on the can we show the slide again? The brains on the right are normal children, and those are neural tracts. Those are neuronal connections. The brain on the left is a stunted child. They literally have millions of fewer neuronal connections every single day. These children, and we know from data, are not going to learn as well, and they're not going to earn. We know already that they don't earn as well. What are they going to do in a future that's going to be much more digitally demanding? Well, this is where all of you come in. 78 trillion is the size of the global economy. 8.55 trillion, as of about 6 days ago, was invested in negative interest rate bonds. 24.4 trillion invested in very low yielding government bonds, and 8 trillion literally in cash, sitting under very, very large mattresses. That's what exists today. Now, our hope is that by playing a completely different role as the World Bank Group, playing a role of helping the owners of this capital earn higher returns while at the same time creating opportunities in developing countries. This is urgent. It's urgent because aspirations are rising. We're losing jobs right now to automation, and we don't know if entire countries will be able to compete in the future. Let me give you some examples of how this works. This is the Queen Alia International Airport in Jordan. The Queen Alia International Airport, at first, King Abdullah and his team came to us and said, we want to take out a loan. We'll give you a sovereign guarantee, and we're going to use that loan, try to attract some private investors, and see if we can build an airport. And we said to them, you don't need to do that. It is commercially viable. We will help you do it completely on commercial terms. And the World Bank person who works with the public sector had to work against his own interest to move it over and let the private sector do it. Today, it would cost about $1 billion to build. They sold the license for a profit, of course, and over the last 8 years, they've received $1 billion in payment from the airport without having to provide a single sovereign guarantee, without making a single loan payment. This is what we have to try to do in every case first. This is the first step. We have to ask ourselves, can the private sector do it alone? Sometimes, though, the private sector needs help. In this case, solar energy in Zambia. The cost of solar in Zambia was 18 cents a kilowatt hour. But part of the reason is because auctions weren't done efficiently. The paperwork for putting an auction together didn't exist. There was not the kind of changes in government policy required. So we worked on all of those things, and with our approach we call scaling solar, the price went from 18 cents to an effective price of 4.7 cents a kilowatt hour. Electricity in Zambia costs the people around 20 cents a kilowatt hour, and we were able to bring it down. We're going to be able to bring it down dramatically. This was a commercial, an almost completely commercial play, with us just playing the role of being a convener. Now, my hope is that we can begin leapfrogging technology. We can do things that we'd never thought. This is Rwanda, and I was there, and I was launching a drone. The Zipline company, a group of brilliant, literally rocket scientists, worked with the Rwandan government, and now the Rwandans can deliver blood anywhere in the country in less than an hour. Now, in doing this, it was literally using artificial intelligence and the brilliance of a California-based company working with the Rwandan government that, for the first time in the history of the world, had drones delivering vital medical supplies in a country. Now, the question for us is, can we use technology in ways that we haven't imagined to help developing countries face the crises that they face? Let me end with just one quick story. So this is a recent visit I made to Tanzania. And as I always do, I visit schools, and I visited this particular classroom of 11-year-old children. I asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? This particular young boy and one other young woman immediately stood up and said, I want to be president of the World Bank. Right? Just like you, my team and the teachers laughed. And I said, wait a minute. Let me just tell you a story. I was born in one of the poorest countries in the world. And when I was 3 years old, sitting in a classroom in Seoul, and you saw the pictures in Seoul, when I was a three-year-old in 1962, if George David Woods, who was the president of the World Bank at that time, had come to my classroom, I doubt he would have thought that one of his successors was sitting there. I told these children from Tanzania, don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't be the president of whatever you want to be. You know, the urgency of the situation is tremendous. If you have high aspirations and you have opportunity, things can happen like what happened to our family. But if you have high aspirations that are constantly frustrated, you have things like the Arab Spring. You have things like the rapidly increasing number of terrorist acts. You have countries living in fragility, conflict, violence. You have increasing numbers of countries who may be going down that path. It's an urgent task, but what we're asking of you is look at the tools we have. We have the lowest borrowing cost in the world. We're AAA, but we're borrowing at LIBOR minus 5 or 10 basis points. Our borrowing costs today are lower than the treasuries. We pass that on to countries. We can do guarantees. We do political risk insurance. We provide credit enhancement tools. There's so many things that we do, and we're shifting because our resources aren't enough to meet the aspirations of the people we work with. We need you. We think we can help you earn a better return than you're earning right now, and at the end of the day, do a lot of good in the world. Please work with us. What we've learned is efforts to institute equality of outcomes where everyone has the same outcomes has not worked. The two largest communist countries in the world have embraced that idea that it doesn't work. But if that's what we've now accepted, then what we all have to work for is creating equality of opportunity. And with your help, we know we can do it, and we know we have to do it. Thank you very much.